I was about 3 hours deep into my drive when I passed the sign, mile marker 209. That stretch of highway ran straight through a remote patch of desert between two towns I can't even remember the names of anymore. Just gas stations, faded billboards, and nothing else but empty road and heat shimmer. I'd been driving west since morning, heading from Oklahoma to somewhere near the California border. My cousin was getting married, and I figured I'd make the drive alone instead of flying. I didn't mind being alone on the road, usually. I had a cooler on the passenger seat, some peanut butter crackers, and a gas station coffee that had gone lukewarm hours ago. The sun was starting to dip behind the hills, casting long shadows across the highway. I remember checking the time, 6:42 p.m. That's when I saw the car. It was pulled off to the side, halfway into the shoulder, hazard lights blinking. A blue Corolla, dusty as hell, with the trunk slightly open. Normally, I'd just keep going. People get weird when strangers stop. But as I drove past, I caught a glimpse of someone, a woman, waving both hands, frantic. Not the casual, hey, I need a jump kind of wave either. She looked terrified. I slowed down. I had this pit in my stomach telling me not to. But I pulled over about 30 feet ahead of the car and put my hazards on. I didn't get out right away. Something felt off. No other cars had passed in either direction for at least 20 minutes. I cracked my window, listened. Nothing but wind and cicadas. Then I got out. She was already walking toward me by then, mid-30s maybe, sunburnt, jeans and a faded tank top. Her hair was tied back and her face looked like she'd been crying. She kept glancing over her shoulder at the Corolla like something might crawl out of it. "Hey," I said, keeping some space between us. "You okay?" She nodded too quickly. Yeah, my phone's dead and I've been out here for hours. Car broke down. No signal." Her voice was dry and shaking. "Can you give me a ride to the next gas station or whatever's closest?" My gut clenched. I don't know why. Maybe it was how she never stopped looking back at her car. Maybe it was how she didn't even glance at my car before asking for help. "Where you headed?" I asked. "Just west, anywhere with a phone." I looked at the Corolla again. The trunk was still cracked open. "Pop your trunk," I said. She blinked at me. "What?" "If I'm giving a ride, I want to make sure nobody's hiding in your car." Her eyes widened just a little. Not surprise, not fear, something colder. Then she smiled. "Sure." She turned and started walking back toward the Corolla. I didn't follow her. Something in me told me to go. I stepped backwards, keeping her in sight, then turned and got in my car. I locked the doors, reversed back toward the highway, and just as I put the car in drive, I saw it. The trunk of the Corolla flew open. A man rolled out. He was big, dressed in black, something shiny in his hand, looked like a tire iron. He landed hard, stumbled, and started running toward me. I floored it. My tires spat dust and I swerved onto the road, tires shrieking, heart jackhammering. I didn't stop again for 50 miles. I made it to a diner outside a tiny town called Sierra Bluff. I pulled in, shaking, and sat in the booth closest to the window. The waitress brought me water and a menu. I didn't even look at it. I asked if they had a payphone. She shook her head, said there was a sheriff's office about 10 minutes down the road. I drove straight there. The deputy on duty took my story down, asked for the location, and nodded like he'd heard worse. "That area is a dump zone for carjackers," he told me. "They pull the fake breakdown trick. Woman distracts, guy in the trunk or behind the seat hits you when you get close. You're lucky." I gave a statement, then kept going. 3 days later, I got a call from an unknown number while I was in California. I picked up out of habit. "We found the car," the voice said. It was the deputy. Abandoned, blood in the trunk, still checking DNA. "Did you find her?" I asked. Pause. "No, but there were signs. Someone else might have stopped. We're still working the scene." I didn't sleep that night. Even now, when I drive alone through long stretches of nothing, I think about her face. The way she smiled after I asked about the trunk. That flicker, like she already knew it wouldn't work this time. Maybe she was in it deeper than she wanted to be. Or maybe she enjoyed it. Either way, I still look twice when I see a broken down car on a desert road. I don't stop anymore. I hadn't planned to drive at night, but I left work later than expected, and by the time I gassed up and grabbed a few things, the sun was already gone. The road out to my aunt's house cuts through about 90 miles of open desert, the kind of place where the only lights are your own headlights and maybe the glow from a gas station 50 miles back. She lives alone on a small property near the state border. I hadn't seen her in a few years, but she asked me to come help her with some repairs around the place. I agreed, thinking I'd head out early and get there by evening. Instead, I was 2 hours behind schedule and alone on that long, empty stretch with nothing but sand and black sky all around. About an hour into the drive, I noticed a car in my rearview mirror. At first, I didn't think much of it. Just another late traveler, maybe heading to one of the smaller towns past the hills. But it was odd how close they were riding my bumper. We were the only two vehicles for miles. They had plenty of space, but they just stayed tight on me, like they were waiting. I tapped the brakes a little, just enough to flash the lights. They didn't back off. I stayed steady, telling myself it was just one of those aggressive drivers. Maybe they didn't want to pass in the dark, but 10 minutes went by, then 20. They never tried to overtake. I changed lanes once, moving toward the gravel shoulder just to give them space. They stayed behind me. By now, the stretch of road was completely flat, no curves, no trees. I could see straight ahead for miles. Still, they made no move to go around. I started to feel that heat in my chest, the kind that creeps in when something isn't right but you're trying to act like it is. So I did what my gut told me. I turned off onto a small rest area on the side of the highway. Nothing but a trash can and a faded map board. I slowed to a stop, waited. The car behind me kept going, no hesitation, just cruised right past and disappeared into the dark. I let out a breath. Maybe I'd overthought it. I sat there for a bit, drank some water, checked my phone. Still no signal, but I expected that. Then I pulled back onto the road. About 5 minutes later, I saw headlights again. Same shape, same distance, same car. I don't know if they'd turned around or pulled off somewhere and waited, but they were behind me again, and now I was certain it wasn't random. They were following me. This time I didn't hesitate. I sped up, not too fast, just enough to see if they'd keep pace. They did. I pushed it a little more. They stayed right with me. I wasn't carrying anything valuable, just a bag of clothes, some tools, a box of stuff for my aunt. Nothing worth chasing someone over. But this wasn't about robbery on the road. This was something else, something quieter, planned. Whoever they were, they'd locked on to me. I passed a turnoff I recognized, an old ranger trail that loops through some abandoned campgrounds. I took it. Sharp right, tires skidding a little over loose gravel. I killed my headlights as soon as I was off the main road, stopped behind a small hill, waited. A minute later, their headlights appeared, slowing at the curve, then nothing. No engine, no lights, just gone. I backed my car up slowly, turned around, and re-entered the main road in the opposite direction, heart pounding. I drove 10 miles back toward the last town. Nothing. No sign of them. Just when I started to breathe easy again, they reappeared. This time, closer. I tried to call 911. No service. No bars. I even thought about pulling over and pretending I had car trouble. But that only works when you're not terrified. So I did the only thing that made sense. I gunned it, pushed my car to 90. The road started to blur. My hands were shaking. The car behind me stayed with me until the road split. 2 lanes peeled off. One went toward a private ranch. The other continued through the hills to my aunt's place. I took the hills. They didn't follow. I stayed alert the rest of the drive. My eyes stayed locked on the mirrors, but the desert stayed quiet. The sky started to pale around the edges. The night was fading. By the time I reached my aunt's house, I was still wired. She opened the door, surprised to see me so early. "You okay?" she asked. "You look like you've seen something." I didn't know how to explain it, how close it had felt, how calculated. I just told her I got tailed on the road and had to be careful. She nodded like it wasn't the first time she'd heard something like that. Later that morning, we drove into town together to get breakfast. At a gas station near the edge of the highway, I saw the same car parked off to the side. Same color, same dent on the fender. 2 men sat inside, both looking away when I passed. They didn't follow us this time. Maybe because I wasn't alone, but I never took that road again. I've driven through snow, storms, cities with broken lights and broken people. But nothing scared me more than that quiet stretch of desert, where the only reason I'm still here is because I trusted my gut and didn't stop driving. I was taking the long way home, not on purpose. My GPS rerouted me after a traffic jam back near the state line, and instead of sticking to the freeway, I ended up on some forest road that cut through a stretch of old pine woods. Name was something like Ridge Hollow Pass or maybe Deer Trail Route. Can't remember now. It was already late afternoon, but I figured, what the hell? I'd drive it out, enjoy the view, beat the traffic. About 2 hours in, the sun dropped faster than I expected. That thick tree cover made it feel like dusk even before the sky went orange. It got real quiet too. No other cars, no lights, just trees closing in tighter on either side. Still, I wasn't worried. I remember passing a wooden sign that read, "Bridge 1 mile." And then not long after that, the road dipped and opened up just enough for me to see a bridge up ahead and realize something was wrong. The pavement gave way to exposed wood slats. Some of the railing had collapsed, and right near the center, the entire section of the bridge was gone. Just straight through, open air. A chunk of it must have fallen into the ravine. I stopped about 20 feet from the edge. Engine still running, I grabbed a flashlight and got out. Cold air hit me hard. I walked closer. The drop was steep, maybe 40 feet to a dried-out riverbed. There was no getting across, no signs, no warning cones. Just a broken bridge in the middle of nowhere. No signal on my phone either. I backed up and turned the truck around, but the forest had swallowed the light, and I realized quick I wasn't driving that road back in the dark. Too narrow, no railings in some spots, pitch black in every direction. If I slipped or missed a curve, I'd end up wrapped around a tree or worse. I sighed and parked at the side of the road, locked the doors, pulled my hoodie over my head, looked at the clock, 7:41 p.m. I was in for the night. I thought I'd sleep, just power through and head back at sunrise. But it wasn't that simple. Around 9, I heard what sounded like gravel shifting behind the car. I froze, turned off the radio, rolled the window down just enough to listen. Nothing, no footsteps, no engine, just trees creaking in the wind. I brushed it off, tried to get comfortable again, but maybe 15 minutes later, I caught something in the side mirror. Movement, not a shape, just motion, like someone had passed behind the back of the car. I turned quick, nothing there. I sat up, wide awake now, flashlight in my lap, one hand near the glove box where I kept a little pocket knife. Not much, but it was something. The woods were still dead quiet. I told myself it was an animal, maybe a raccoon or something, but in the mirror it looked bigger, taller. I turned the truck back on. Headlights lit up the bridge ahead, nothing but empty road and broken wood. Still, I kept the engine running. A while later, maybe around 11 or so, I started hearing the same thing again. Gravel shifting, this time closer, like bare feet crunching soft dirt just outside the passenger side. I didn't move. Then a soft knock on the window. Not a pound, not someone yelling for help, just 3 light taps, slow. My heart thumped hard enough to shake the seat. I turned my head just a little, enough to see the window. No one was there. I stayed frozen, gripping the flashlight, eyes on the dark tree line. Then came another knock, this time on the rear glass, closer to the tailgate. Same rhythm, soft, calm. I couldn't take it anymore. I slammed my fist on the horn and turned on the high beams, the fog lights, everything. Silence. I jumped out of the truck with the flashlight, heart in my throat, and swept the light around the trees. No one. Just my own breath fogging in the cold. I didn't sleep after that. Stayed locked in, headlights on, gripping the steering wheel like it was keeping me grounded. The woods felt alive, not in a ghostly way, just human. Like someone was out there, walking slow circles around my truck, just out of reach of the light. At some point near dawn, I saw it. In the rearview mirror, someone standing in the middle of the road, maybe 50 feet back, barefoot, wearing jeans and no shirt, just standing there, arms at their sides. I spun around, gone. I scrambled out again, flashlight raised. Still nothing. But this time I saw something on the road. Prints. Bare footprints in the dust and gravel. Walking around the back of the truck, but no trail leading away. When the sun finally came up, I bolted out of there. Didn't stop to eat, didn't stop for coffee. I just drove back the way I came, eyes burning, pulse still going like I was being chased. Eventually the road met back up with the highway. Signal came back. First call I made was to report the bridge. State police took the report, but didn't seem surprised. Apparently, that section of the road had been closed for months, washed out from a storm. They were working on signage. I told them about the person I saw, the footprints. The dispatcher just said, "We'll check the area." I don't think they did. I still wonder what would have happened if I'd gotten out when I heard that first knock, or if I'd stayed asleep. Whoever was out there, if they were even real, didn't want help. They wanted me to open the door. And if I had, I don't think I'd be here to tell you about it. I had just finished a short construction job up north and was driving back down through the mountains, somewhere around the Oregon border. I had a day to kill before I had to be anywhere, so I wasn't rushing. Just me, my old Tacoma, and some leftovers in a cooler. The plan was to cut through a scenic road a local guy told me about, Summit Pines Road. Said it was prettier than the highway and saved a bit of time if you knew the curves. He left out how isolated it was. I turned off the main road around 3 p.m. The pavement narrowed quick. Trees got thick, tall, swallowing the light. It was nice at first, cool shade, quiet, peaceful in a way only back roads can be. But after about an hour, I realized I hadn't seen another car. No cabins, no people, no cell service. Just trees and my own tires crunching gravel. Then the low fuel light came on. I'd filled up that morning but forgot how much climbing burns through. My GPS had dropped off miles ago. No signs, no idea how far to the next town. I wasn't panicking, but I was watching that gauge real close. That's when I came around a bend and nearly hit a truck parked sideways across the road. Big red Dodge Ram, lifted, off-road tires, tinted windows, blocking the whole lane. I slammed the brakes, tires skidding a little in the dirt. My heart shot up. No one was in the truck, or at least no one I could see. I rolled down my window a little, called out, "Hello?" No answer. I honked. Nothing. Something felt off. The doors were closed, engine off, but it was parked like someone stopped fast or wanted to block the road. I threw it in reverse, planning to backtrack and find a turnoff. Just as I started moving, I saw a man step out from behind a tree on the left side of the road. He wasn't in uniform. No safety vest, no gear. Just jeans, boots, a black t-shirt. Looked mid-30s, beard, sunglasses. He raised one hand, palm out. I stopped, window still cracked. "You okay?" I asked. He didn't say anything, just kept his hand up. Then a second guy stepped out of the woods on the other side. Taller, bald, arms covered in tattoos. Also quiet. I didn't like how they boxed me in. "You guys need help?" I asked again, louder. No answer. The first guy started walking toward my driver's side. That's when I put it in drive and hit the gas. I had just enough room to nudge the front corner of their truck and squeeze past. My bumper scraped theirs hard, but I kept going, tires spitting dirt as I sped down the road. I didn't look back. I drove maybe 5-6 minutes before pulling off into a narrow trail that dipped down into the trees. I killed the engine and waited. My hands were shaking. I figured they'd follow, or at least try, but no one passed. I sat there, heart pounding, trying to figure out what the hell just happened. That wasn't a breakdown. That wasn't normal. I remembered a news story from a few years back. Some guy got jumped on a Forest Service road, robbed, left tied to a tree. He survived, but barely. I wasn't going to be that guy. I waited a solid 30 minutes before creeping back onto the main road. No sign of the truck, just deep tire marks where I'd pushed past. I kept driving. Eventually I saw a wooden sign, Summit Ridge, 12 miles, civilization. I didn't stop again until I hit a diner on the outskirts of a small town. I filled the tank, got some food, sat at a corner booth with a coffee, still jittery. I told the waitress what happened. She didn't look surprised. "Probably them Ridge boys," she said. "They don't live in town, but folks see 'em around. Bunch of backwoods wannabe militia types. Sheriff can't ever catch 'em." I nodded slowly. "They ever stop people like that?" She leaned in a little. "Couple years back, girl disappeared up that road. Car found abandoned, nothing else." That hit hard. She shrugged. "You're lucky. You kept moving. That's the trick. That road's not on any map app. I checked later. Summit Pines Road. Sounds nice. Looks nice for the first few miles. But I know better now. Never trust a scenic detour through the woods if you're alone. Especially not one that locals barely use. Pretty can turn dangerous real fast. I got out clean, yeah, but I think about what would have happened if I'd hesitated. If I'd rolled my window all the way down. if I'd stepped out. Those guys weren't blocking the road for fun. They were waiting, and they'll wait again. I had just left El Paso that morning, heading toward Phoenix. The plan was to make it in one long stretch, 10, maybe 11 hours tops. I liked being on the road alone, with the windows cracked just enough to hear the wind and the music low. I wasn't in a rush. I was just trying to get away from everything for a while. The first 3 hours were fine, just heat, sand, and the occasional semi blowing past in the other lane. I stopped once for gas, grabbed a sandwich, and kept going. It was just before 2 p.m. when I noticed my fuel gauge dropping faster than it should have. I had just filled up. I thought maybe the gauge was off, but I kept watching it drop. I pulled over to check under the car. Nothing leaking, no smell of gas, no warning lights. Everything looked fine, but that needle was still falling. I didn't want to chance it. So when I saw a little green sign for Dust Creek, 3 miles, I figured I'd pull off and see if they had a mechanic. Just a precaution. I hadn't heard of Dust Creek before, but I wasn't from the area, and desert towns were always hit or miss. The road was thin, just 2 cracked lanes weaving between rocky hills. It looked like something out of an old Western movie. I drove slow, eyes scanning for signs of life. Nothing. Not a gas station, not a house. Then I saw the sign, Dust Creek Auto and Salvage. There were 2 cars out front, both rusted out like they hadn't moved in a decade. A little trailer office sat crooked behind them. I parked and stepped out. The sun hit me like a hammer. I knocked on the trailer door. Nothing. I waited. Then the door creaked open a few inches. A guy in a stained white tank top stuck his head out, looked mid-50s, long gray hair, thick beard. Didn't say anything, just looked at me. "Hey," I said, keeping my tone easy. "My fuel gauge is acting weird. Not sure if it's the sensor or what. Can you take a look?" He looked at my car, then at me. "Ain't a mechanic." I nodded. "The sign says auto." He squinted. "We do salvage. You want parts, we got 'em." "Oh, got it." I glanced back toward the road. "Any other shops nearby?" "Nope." The way he said it was weird. Flat. Certain. I said thanks and got back in my car. As I started backing out, I noticed something behind the trailer. Looked like a chain-link fence with a padlocked gate. Inside were maybe 8 or 9 cars, all newer, all looked clean. I slowed. That didn't fit. The cars were too nice to be salvage. Before I could think too much, the guy stepped out of the trailer and started walking toward me. I didn't wait. I reversed fast, turned back down the road, and headed toward the highway. I drove until I was out of sight, then pulled into a small dirt shoulder and shut off the engine. I sat there for a minute, sweating, listening to the ticking of the engine. Something about those cars didn't sit right. So I took out my phone and opened the camera. I zoomed in and snapped a few shots of the fenced lot from the side of the hill. The license plates were visible. I figured I'd look them up later, maybe see if any were reported stolen. Just curiosity. I didn't expect to actually find anything. But I did. That night, in a cheap motel west of Tucson, I pulled out my laptop and started running plates through a public records database a buddy of mine had access to. 4 of the cars came back as stolen. 2 had active missing persons reports tied to them. 1 belonged to a woman who disappeared with her son 6 months ago in Texas. Last seen stopping at a rest area. I sat there for a long time staring at the screen. I thought about calling the cops. I thought about pretending I never saw any of it. Then I emailed everything, pictures, plate numbers, location coordinates, to a friend who worked in the sheriff's office near Phoenix. Told him what I saw, told him to keep my name out of it. He messaged back an hour later, "We're looking into it. You were right to leave." A few weeks passed. I kept checking the news. Nothing came up. I texted my buddy again. He just replied, "Can't say much. Place is gone. Trailer burned. No one found." Burned. That chilled me. I don't know if they caught wind that someone had been snooping, or if someone else got too close. But someone cleared that place out fast. I think back to the way that man looked at me. Blank. Almost bored. Like I was just another guy who might stop, snoop, disappear. He didn't know I took the pictures. He didn't know I had a backup plan. But I bet he's still out there. I've taken road trips since, but I don't take detours anymore. Not in the desert. Not for signs I don't trust. If I break down, I wait for daylight and I stay visible. The desert hides things real well. And not all salvage yards are what they seem.